Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I had a bunch of people send me this story from the Miami Herald, including Kevin, my good friend Kevin. Headline, Scalpers hoarding and selling appointments at Miami-Dade DMVs, according to the tax collectors. And this is a little tricky, but in Florida, there's an office of a tax collector. And the tax collectors are involved with the DMV, and it's all complicated, but the situation here is actually pretty simple in terms of what's happening. So Douglas Hanks wrote the story and said that appointments are a hot commodity at DMV offices across Miami-Dade County and apparently are for sale. Recently, the county agency in the process of taking over the driver's license services in Miami-Dade declared it had uncovered a network of appointment scalpers who've been hoarding the free appointments and reselling them for a profit. So the tax collector says, we know who they are and how they operate. We will not accept any appointment obtained through system abuse. Lines outside the state-run DMV offices can form the night before walk-in slots, and people report having to wait months to get appointments. So this man's office put most of the blame on driving schools, which appear to be securing appointments under random names and then selling customers the coveted time slots. The appointments sold for as little as $25 and as high as $250. They said, we're still investigating, but it appears that many of the people scalping appointments were part of a driving school, which has been collapsing our system. Some of the residents on the list never showed up to their appointments, possibly because they were simply placeholders for individuals to whom they resold the appointments. In the 3 weeks since this office opened up in downtown Miami, a suspected 200 appointments came through suspected scalpers, his office said. The scalpers got the time slots through the online appointment system, utilizing bots, fake accounts, and other means to secure appointments. I can tell you that I recently bought a vehicle. I mentioned that I bought an old Jeep Wrangler from a friend of mine a couple weeks back. So I had to go to the Michigan Secretary of State's office. That's what we call our DMV. And I went online, and it goes, where do you want to go? And I picked an office. It goes, do you want to make an appointment now? Yes, I do. And it puts up a calendar, says pick a time. But you got to give them your name and your phone number. So when I went to the local Secretary of State's office and walked in and said, hi, I'm here for an appointment. They go, what's your name? And I gave it to him. And then when I went and did all my stuff, I had to ID myself because I'm buying a vehicle and getting plates in my name. And so that's obviously a problem if you can simply walk in and go, hi, I'm your 2 o'clock. Oh, okay. While DMV locations in Miami-Dade are mostly run by the state, the county tax collector's office is in the process of taking them over under a change mandated by state law. Most Florida counties already run their license offices, but the change in the Florida Constitution that mandated Miami-Dade elect an independent tax collector in November also requires the office to take over the state's DMV operations. The practice of reselling the appointments does not appear to be illegal, according to the man they're talking to, who said he'll be urging changes in laws to ban appointment scalping. We believe this type of activity has been happening for a long time. We're taking action to make this illegal and enforce the law to stop the fraud. I'm here to fix it, and in the coming days, we'll be working with our local and state partners to find a solution to this problem. County Commissioner recently introduced legislation to make selling a DMV appointment a civil offense in Miami-Dade, with offenders subject to $500 in fines. And so, like I said, it should be really, really simple to eliminate by saying, give us your name and your contact information. And then if the person shows up and goes, well, yeah, I'm that person at 2 o'clock. It's just I used a different name for some wacky reason. How about no? Okay. But I recently heard a story about a similar situation with people who wanted to golf in a major California city that has public golf courses. Okay. So you want to go golfing and it's, well, you want a tee time. You got to log on to this web page, put your information in, and get a slot. And people have been saying for the longest time that you go there and all the slots are taken. The instant they're available, boom, they're gone. And I read an article by somebody who said they were investigating that. And somebody said, oh, you want a tee time on one of the public courses? Call this guy. And a guy somehow had access to and had basically locked up all of the public tee times that were available by using some sort of program or bot or something. So the second things became available, his bot went in and grabbed it. And then if you wanted one of those tee times, you'd buy it from that guy. And of course, that's not how that's supposed to be working. And the question always is, is it illegal? And I believe in that case, it bordered on it because you're supposed to put in your name and information. And what's this guy putting in to indicate that he's entitled to all these tee times when there are limits on how many tee times a particular person can get within a certain time frame and so on. So this is a weird one. You'll recall, of course, is a joke from Seinfeld about having the low number at the deli. And I believe Stephen Wright had a joke about scalping those numbers. So it's very, very similar. And I know some people are going to be going, but Steve, if there's no law against it, until that happens, this is perfectly fine. And of course, no, it's not. No, it's not. Because you're trying to do something you're required to do by law. And you're having a hard time doing it because you can't get an appointment because all the appointments are taken by people who are buying them up and then reselling them. And that's another question I have is, where are they selling these? I mean, word of mouth? Because I can't imagine you can advertise, like, by the way, I've got early appointments at the DMV if you want to buy them. I can't imagine that people would be advertising that. But then again, nowadays, if you want to buy almost anything, you can find it someplace on the internet. Maybe on that dark web. But I can tell you that I had not been inside a state, Secretary of State's office in Michigan to do anything significant in quite some time. And the last time that I was in one was a few years ago when I lived in a much, much, much smaller town. And there, you could just walk in because they had such little business that, I mean, it didn't even occur to me to make an appointment because I drove by a couple of times, never saw any activity there that looked busy. But one of the funnier things that people my age are going to remember is that nowadays your license plates tend, in most states, to expire the month of your birthday. So if you're born in January, your license plate will often expire in January. Now, I'm sure it's going to depend on the state, but Michigan went to that system quite a while ago. And the reason they went to that system is before that, okay? And again, I'm speaking to the people in my demographic, in my cohort. Before that, everyone's plates expired on December 31st. And so what would happen is, starting in December, the people who were, the ones who had their acts together, shall we say, would get their plates renewed. And you could do it by mail or you could do it in person. And if you drove by a Secretary of State's office on January 2nd, any year, there would be lines before they opened, at the door, going down the block, around the block, and probably into the next county. And it became a joke about all the people standing in line on January 2nd to get their new license plate tabs because they didn't get around to it when they should have. And technically speaking, many of them drove to the Secretary of State's office on expired tags. I mean, they didn't all walk there, did they? So I remember hearing disc jockeys joking about that, going, hey, it's January 2nd. If you're in line right now, we got a message for you. And they fixed that by saying, hey, let's do this on the month of your birthday. And people are like, whoa, what a brilliant idea. Why didn't we think of that before? So I'm curious if there's any states out there that don't do that. I think pretty much by now they all have. But I know that in Florida there's this weird connection where tax collectors' offices can handle license plate tags as well as the DMV or something. I don't quite understand it, but I've got friends in Florida. So Kevin, thanks for sending that from the Miami Herald. Scalpers are hoarding and selling appointments at the Miami-Dade DMVs, according to the tax collectors. Questions or comments, put them below this. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Just so everyone's clear, I'm going to put my glasses on.